The untouchable Gojo versus the unbreakable Andy. What happens when literal infinity is up against cosmic immortality? I'll tell you what happens, it ignores all logic. So if you want to know how the enlightened one would fare against Tozuka's God of War, then you're in the right place. Because I'm gonna explain why Gojo vs Andy unequivocally broke my brain. And to begin, I think it's pretty important to explain that for the few people who don't know what Gojo and Andy are all about, this battle isn't going to be your typical kind on the channel, involving that strict power scaling or analysis of their movesets, because this fight all comes down to just one thing for both characters. Two special abilities that are so potent in their ridiculousness that it wouldn't matter what kind of numbers or ideas I could possibly throw at them, the stats will just end up sort of irrelevant when put up against Gojo's curse technique, the Limitless, or Andy's negator power, the Undead. In Gojo's case, this is a power that controls the concept of space so precisely that he can basically never be touched by anything ever. In the event that something even tries, it'll be slowed down to an infinitesimally small speed, with the target then forever doomed not to reach its destination. Which is all packaged nicely alongside a host of other OP spatial anime abilities, such as pushing, pulling, or crushing reality in a fruit snack pack color-coded lineup. And on the flip side, Andy has the negator power of Undeath, an ability that, among many others, was granted to the characters of the world of Undead Unluck by a malicious god that allows their wielders to literally negate or undo a specific concept of their given unname, such as the Unluck of Fuko reversing luck, the Untouch of Titania reversing touch, or in Andy's case, Undead, which reverses the concept of dying. Be it to disease, trauma, exploding, you name it, anything that can put you on a shirt, he's got an Uno reverse for it. And just seeing this at face value, I'm assuming you can sort of see a problem forming here. Because although both scale from similar feats, such as the Maximum Meteor or Titania vaporizing a town, neither can really do anything to conventionally hurt the other. Be it his fist, sword, or literal soul, Andy's got nothing he can do to go through Satoru's infinite barrier, and for Gojo, he could unironically reduce the man to atomic particles, but Andy would still just get up good as new. So understanding that there's nothing the duo can really do with the option of raw AP, is there anything in their arsenal that the two could use to actually solve it? Or is this just the versus battle with no end? A Schrodinger's scale, so to speak. And, well, for hacks, it's honestly no, since while Gojo's abilities are handy on their own, from RCT regen to the Limitless techniques and even his domain expansion capable of creating an inescapable ball of mind-breaking illusions, Andy can seriously just sort of undo any of that as long as it's directly harming him. Because all negator powers are stated time and time again to work off of self-perception. Meaning that because Gojo's domain would theoretically turn him brain dead, which is a form of death in Andy's eyes, his entire technique is instantly undone without Andy even ever having to ask his alter ego Victor for help. And while Andy's immortality is usually awesome at beating flashy Gojo-esque opponents, either by overwhelming them with swarms of clones or spamming regen-based attacks, like we said before, none of it's ever gonna hit Gojo through his infinity filter. Even those later gained soul powers we mentioned before are all pretty useless against Gojo's Six Eyes, which have stopped spiritual energy in the past. Plus, the typical answer of just blatantly outlasting his foe through stamina won't do much good here either, since Gojo also just happens to have limitless stamina from that oh-so-OP space-bending ability. And don't even get your hopes up for a blitz either, because Gojo's space-bending eyes combo pack make him the fastest sorcerer in his verse, capable of dunking on foes who could react to black holes and lightning, while also giving him access to straight-up teleportation as part of his very wide toolkit. Whereas Andy sorta just scales to the same lightning and light-esque dodging metas, as he's capable of blasting himself from space to Earth in seconds, dodging laser beams, and other ridiculous anime nonsense of that sort. Making the speed stat as a whole pretty irrelevant, as the pair have both been comfortably crammed into similar ranges. So is there really Napoleon-style nothing we can do to see this fight to the end? Well, not exactly. Despite all the hacks and OP no-you abilities running around here, there are at least 2 separate ways this fight could go that result in it ending. At least, sort of. Let me explain. The first of these 2 endings leans in favor of Gojo, as while he can't beat Andy by flinging him into space, blowing him up, or making him catch straight hands, Andy isn't exactly equipped to do anything against Gojo either. So what might work is a form of non-lethal damage. Since anything Andy's mind labels as not threatening death will never be reversed, because he's not undoing damage, he's undoing dying. This is shown in the manga when Andy has his neck broken and proceeds to end up fully paralyzed with no hope of healing. Now, while actually accomplishing this non-lethal neck break on an end-of-series Andy would be easier said than done, as he's one of the most skilled and experienced shonen characters of all time, with over 5 billion years under his belt, and hacks such as clones to help him avoid such a result, given enough time, it sort of just becomes an eventual that the unhittable Gojo would stop trying to nuke Andy for long enough to actually think about what needs to be done, and voila. Satoru the Hands Gojo proceeds to snap Andy's neck like a Kit Kat bar, leaving us with a sort of half-winner, since Gojo could definitely still fight, and Andy couldn't. But he's also definitely still alive. And since there's some wiggle room for interpretation as to how long this method would even work for, it might not be that far off to say that considering what happened when he started to see being forgotten as dying, and then used that to grant himself control over all memories, to prevent people from forgetting he existed, if dying of boredom or something began to count as dead to Andy, or if you genuinely just think a battle is only concluded when it's to the death, then the alternative favors Andy, as the fight with Gojo continues on for eternity until, like everyone else, time catches up to Gojo, and then just like all of us, he gets old and sort of just like unalives. It's not the most cool way to go or anything, but after having no answer to Undead for almost 40 or 50 years straight, without some sort of extreme luck, Old Man Gojo just sort of loses by default, since Andy is alive and Satoru is not. But all in all, my conclusions on the matchup are that it's a tie by all conventional means, but Gojo would win if you think being unable to fight would warrant a W, and Andy would win if you think the fight don't stop till a body drops. But check out the linked video here for more if you enjoyed, and that's all for today. Thanks, everyone.